All right, I'm live. I think it's working. Can anyone who gets on live first please put into the chat that you can see me and you can hear me? That would be fabulous. Test, test, test. Test, 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 test. Yeah, let me know about sound and welcome to anyone getting on. If you could put into the chat if you can hear me okay and see me okay. And then we're going to get started with the improviser. Kirsty. Okay, good. Fabulous. I'm so glad you're the one that can see me and hear me. Okay, welcome everybody. Tiffany Carole here, and this is the Know Your Creator Type series. We're on the type number 1, which is the improviser. If you missed last week, which I really laid down the foundation for the improviser, you really should go back and watch that one because there's a lot of information in there that I won't be going into again here. Here, now, we're going to go into more depth and detail with the improviser. So, the 5 creator types are connected to the 5 elements, and the improviser, can you remember from last time? The improviser is connected to which element? Quiz time. Let's see if anyone's got this. There might be a delay in hearing it. The improviser is connected to fire element. And the fire element in the Chinese system is connected to summertime. So at least where I am right now, it is summertime and it is hot. I think it's hot in a lot of the world. So it's a perfect time to be talking about the improviser and the fire type. As a little bit of a, oh, great. I'm checking the YouTube signals here. They say I'm good. Uh, Part of the nature of the improviser is that it needs to have the option to improvise, which is spontaneous and flowing and fiery and playful and fun. And if the improviser doesn't have the right structure and the right tools to basically temper the fire when it's needed or stoke the fire when it's needed, then the improviser can either burn out, way overextend, and have issues with the heart related boundaries or intimacy boundaries, and be completely ungrounded and scattered and have trouble committing and finishing things. So, with just a little bit of awareness, both on the side of the gifts of the improviser as well as the needed allies or needed practices, the improviser can become so much more powerful within their abilities. Now, just as a reminder, we all have all of the creator types. We have all the creator types. We have all of the 5 elements within us. But each of us have certain types that we're naturally very good at, and we have types that we're naturally more challenged with. And if we know and understand where our strengths and weaknesses are, then we can sculpt and mold our creative life or our creative engagement to support both of those rather than being at war with ourselves. Like, oh, you shouldn't be like that. You should be like this. You should be disciplining yourself more. You shouldn't procrastinate. I actually, in my experience, if you know your creator type and how to work with it and how to bring in the other creator types when they're needed for balance, you don't have to be within that. I think of it really as an old paradigm way of sort of disciplining oneself in order to produce or create. I actually, at this point in my creative life and just in my life in general, it doesn't work for me to have that sort of old school type discipline. And yet, discipline is actually really important when it comes to going all the way through process with creations, especially if it's something that we're offering up to the world. So there is a naturally produced, if you will, or naturally arising discipline and commitment and loyalty, and we could put in many more words that come when we are in balance with our creator type. So, for all of these reasons, this is important. Okay, this is my special uh, improviser non alcoholic cocktail, which is like a clementine spritzer. And fire types do, improviser fire types do really well with citrus essential oils, which we're going to talk about. Okay, so you ready? You might like to take notes for this. Take notes on the things that really jump out to you that feel important to you. And welcome anyone new that's coming on. Welcome, welcome. Okay, for the fire type, or that you'll probably hear me use those interchangeably, the improviser or the fire type, they need the best way that I can synthesize this for you is to say that the fire or the improviser type needs the three C's. The three C's. So here's the three C's. And if you have a lot of fire or improviser creator type in you, you're probably really not going to like this first word, but don't worry, I'm going to qualify it in a way that I think that you'll find delightful. So the first one is containment. The second one is commitment. You might not like that one either. And you might not like this third one either. The third one is consistency. So containment, commitment, and consistency. I'm smiling because I can very much relate to these in my own experience. Because the improviser likes to improvise and they don't want their freedom to be limited, and they want to be spontaneous and novel, and they want to do spontaneous adventures. They don't want to be tied to things. This idea of containment and commitment and being consistent. Bleh. There is a certain way that improvisers can work with these three C's that not only make deep sense, but they actually allow the improviser to be more of themselves, to be a better improviser. So let's break down that. And I think what I'll do is I'll save speaking about the essential oils, the specific essential oils and points for the improviser until the end. For those of you that don't enjoy using oils or don't care about using oils, you can just hone right in on these practices. For those of you that do or that want to learn about how powerful they can be in supporting your creator type, make sure to listen all the way to the end. So the first C is containment. And I want you to think about the containment for the improviser as with fire, for example. If you were going to go camping and build a fire, you would do it in a pit. You would have some kind of containment around the fire to be safe, right? If you turn on the burner of your stove, whether it's electric or gas, the fire or the heat element is contained within something. There's a structure to contain the heat so that people don't get hurt. It's really important for the improviser to have containment, because otherwise, this sounds sort of extreme, and I'll qualify it, but they can hurt themselves or other people. And while that can express in pretty extreme ways, like I think often of Robin Williams, who was very, very much a fire improviser creator type. I remember seeing a stand-up episode that he did, and he was very clearly on probably massive amounts of cocaine, and he was red and he was sweating, and he was all things wildly fiery and spontaneous. And he did suffer greatly from excess fire, from this excess of this blazing energy that actually needed and wanted to be both contained and rooted. So that's an example of danger. When we get too hot, too out there, too blazing, which another example of this in humans can be mania. It can be dangerous for them or for their loved ones or for others. And then there's also the less, we couldn't really call them dangerous, but things that slowly erode the power and the effectiveness that an improviser creator type can have in their life. So with containment for the improviser, Because the improviser also needs to be able to improvise and have spontaneity, remember? So the containment needs to be focused more on containers themselves versus a lot of detailed structure. The improviser does not do well in detailed structure. So if you took an improviser and you said, I want you to do your schedule matrix for the day and for the week and like block every 30 minutes of time, and while the improviser might know intellectually that this could be very effective for them, they see it work for other people. Generally, it doesn't work for any kind of length of time for the improviser to be that structured with their container. But if you say for you, if you're an improviser or you have strong improviser or you want to develop it in you, it would be better. Say you're writing a book. It would be better for you to say, I'm committed to writing an hour every day. Be honest with yourself about the best times of day for you to do it. For example, for me, if I don't do my writing in the morning, 98.5% chance it's not going to happen. I know that about myself now. So if I'm honest about how I operate, and I also want to give myself a spacious container, I could say, Tiff, you're committed to an hour a day. And remember, if it doesn't happen by noon, it's probably not going to happen. That would be an example of a really beautiful containment offering for an improviser. The other kind of containment offering, I wrote down another one that I liked for you. Oh, that's under consistency. If you can think of other, based on what I've shared with you, other types of containments for fire that feel nice and supportive for the improviser, type them in the chat. I would love to see. Other types of containment are gonna you're gonna feel them as I talk about some of the consistency pieces because they're woven together. Okay? So now the second C, you ready? The second C is commitment. So again, for the improviser to commit to a lot of detail that feels restrictive to their freedom or to their ability to be spontaneous is not going to work very well for the creativity of the improviser. So the commitment for the improviser has to be to the big vision itself. What is your big vision? Is your big vision to write a book? Is your big vision to produce an album? Is your big vision to make a certain amount of money? Is your big vision to, etc.? Fill in the blank. Whatever your creative vision is that's come to you, that's your big vision, and that's what you're committed to. So write it down and have it somewhere where you can see it. And so then when you're honoring this, the three C's and the second C, which is commitment, you know that you're honoring the big vision. You're committed to the big vision. And then life can get actually a lot more simple because what can happen is you say, with these things that come in during the day, you have the opportunity to go off and do something or uh, to make different decisions in different realms of life. And you think, is this going to be support? Well, maybe you don't think that. This would be the question that would connect you to your commitment is you ask, does this support the big vision or not? If this supports the big vision, go for it. That's an expression of your commitment in action. If it doesn't support, if it takes away from, then maybe you decline it. And that's an expression of your commitment in action. So, this is how you build the commitment, which is actually building trust in yourself as an improviser. It's important to build trust in yourself for all the types, but we're talking about the improviser right now. Okay, so containment, commitment. Yeah, I wrote down, I wanted to share this with you that when an improviser flails in their commitment, it activates the trust wound or the betrayal of trust wound. And for improvisers, this is the core wound. Consistency, the third C. So The consistency for an improviser is more about the consistency with certain practices or with certain containers. Again, are you feeling the thread here or the theme with the improviser? With each of these, it's about a broader, more spacious holding rather than the details. And then it's a commitment to that broader, spacious holding and being honest with oneself about what serves that container or not. Because remember, I shared this with you last time that one of the key features when an improviser is off is deceit, self deceit, and then deceit or manipulation with others. So, starting with the self first, the more honest an improviser can be and the more committed they can be to their sweet, lovely, spacious containers, the more powerful of an improviser and more empowered improviser they can be. So, with the consistency to containers and key practices, we're going to talk about practices last, and that's when I'll bring in the oils. With the containers, what I mean is, as if you're an improviser creator type, you need the permissions to create on the spot, to improvise and create, and even go into delivery or production on the spot. That might look like spontaneously doing an Instagram live or a vocal recording or whatever it is that you like to do, a painting, writing, etc. And if you are a creator who wants to create and then share that with the world, that's where a lot of our value, worth, fear comes up. Then what you want to do is commit, because remember, this is important for you as an improviser, to the containers in which you will deliver or show up. So this could look something like what I'm doing here with the YouTube. I said, hey, everybody, I'm going to be here doing a YouTube live with you every week while we go through these 5 creator types for approximately 3 months or something like that. I'm committed. I've committed to myself, I've committed to you, and I show up for the container. I have an outline, but I don't know everything that I'm going to say ahead of time. I give myself full permissions to improvise as I show up for this container. So the consistency can be simply deciding on the container and the frequency upon which you're going to deliver within that container. Whether it's that you're delivering to other people or to yourself, you're still committing to consistency within that. The gift of consistency for the improviser is that it tempers the fire, or it tempers the tendency of the fire to flame out, especially in the summertime. You know, improvisers tend to get more sped up and potentially more manic in the summertime. And so having these 3 C's in place tempers the fire and keeps it at a, we could say, proper heat level, really. Okay. Now we're going to get into, I think you'll really like this part. We're going to get into the practices. Some of you that are listening may, you may be really skilled, masterful creators already and practiced. And yet we always have room to grow. All of us have room to grow. And so as I share these practices with you, even if you already have key practices in place for yourself, what I want you to do is feel into any place or space where your practices might want to be tweaked to be a more luscious or easeful or playful fit for you or for the improviser part of you. Okay? So, first of all, the key practices uh, support the third C, which is consistency, but they also support the second C, which is commitment. And if you do them consistently, it also supports the first C, which is the containment. Key practices, of course, there's any number of practices that one can do to support things. I'm speaking specifically to the practices that support the improviser. So number 1, and this is where we're going to go next week, by the way, as we get into the alchemist, which is water element. The improviser needs to be balanced by the alchemist energy, by water element. So on the vertical axis in this five element system, we have fire or the improviser up here at the top, and we have the alchemist or water here at the bottom. So within this system, the water element also represents the void or emptiness, the cosmic womb, if you will. We can also say the great mystery. It's so cool because as soon as I start talking about the alchemist, I instantly feel that energy come into my being. And this is one of the most important balancing energies for me as a strong improviser. So when you attune to the energy of the alchemist, which we'll be doing more of next week, and you get used to attuning to that, you can connect to it and drop into it right away. But even before you learn about the alchemist, you can feel it right now if you want to choose to. You let your energy drop down, down, down into your pelvic basin, your pelvic bowl, and even lower down into the earth. And if you really wanted to dip into this water element, into emptiness, you could close your eyes and be there for some minutes. This is meditation. A little burp. So, as an improviser, you need to balance with meditation or some kind of meditative practices. You need to find out what meditative practices work well for you. It could be walks in nature where you're quiet, you don't have your phone, you're not talking to anyone. It could be swimming, peacefully swimming, or what I did today, just floating on my back in the Mediterranean with the sun. Anything that invites you to come still and drop into the present moment and release any need to do anything or any of that sparky energy that wants to come up and play. In terms of oils to support, let's go to my oil page. In terms of oils to support the improviser in this particular practice of meditation, what oils, if you know the oils and you love them, what oils do you think would be best here? You can type it into the chat. I would love to know what you think. Oh, good. Somebody typed. Hi, Kirsty. Yes, exactly. Vetiver is exactly what I was thinking. Vetiver and woody oils. So any rooty or woody oils, vetiver and spikenard would be good examples of rooty oils. Woody oils like cedarwood, sandalwood, black spruce. That's a pungent woody. The woody and rooty oils the woody oils will draw the energy down and into the core of the body, and the rooty oils will sink the energy. So for an improviser who's manic scattered, they're nervous about this thing that they're going to be doing, and they're think about vetiver. It comes from the roots of vetiver, and it's actually the oil that I was working with today. You can take a drop and put it in the palm of your hand, smell it. You can put it right in the center of your belly button, or you can put it on the bottom of the soles of your feet. I recommend doing it aroma point style. You can watch some of my other videos on the essential oils playlist to learn about the technique for aroma point. Now, if you as an improviser have too much heat that's up here and it feels chaotic with your thoughts, one tactic is to drop the energy down through meditative practice or through working with vetiver. But if it actually feels too hard to do that because there's so much energy blazing up here, one of the things that you can do first is disperse this energy with some kind of a citrus oil. It could be sweet or wild orange, it could be mandarin, that's why I'm drinking my clementine drink. It could be bergamot or bergamot. These all work really well. You want to dilute them if you're going to put them on your skin. And then my favorite practice is, as some of you know, is bergamot or mandarin diluted on this point shinmin in the ear. I have a whole video called the Bergamot Reset. And this will reset the brain, but it will also disperse any excess heat. So, like calming down the fire overall, so that the improviser can be more present. For many years before I would have big facilitations or I would be doing something new in my facilitations and in my creations, I would get really nervous. I mean, it was probably excitement and nervousness mixed together, but I would get so ungrounded and I was like moving around from thing to thing and I couldn't quite focus. And that ungroundedness, it was challenging for many reasons. So if you have experience like that, again, thinking about the anchoring into the water, working with vetiver or a woody oil, or if that's too big of a move energetically, you can disperse the heat first and then go into sinking or centering the energy. Okay, next is the next couple of oils I'm going to talk about have to do with helping the improviser to come back into their body. Improvisers are very good at just like launching out there, and that can happen for many reasons. Um, and really, it can actually be part of the delight of an improviser that things get kind of wild and they're just out there and they're super playful and super funny, and that is fine. But if it's you as an improviser and you're utilizing these gifts that you have and you don't know how to control them when you want to, that's when the problem arises. So if you are an improviser that feels comfortable in the realm of, say, performance or delivery of some kind of art form that's connected to you, but you can tend to get really excited and then go too far. Maybe it's extend yourself too far, not be clear with your boundaries, get a little bit manic, get overwhelmed, etc. You want to have something that calms the nervous system and engenders a kind of basically blissful ease. Improviser types are usually very responsive to the floral oils for this reason. And improviser types will often either have like a huge aversion to the floral oils or absolutely love them. So if you are an improviser type and you have certain floral oils that you absolutely hate, fine. You don't need to force yourself to use something you don't like, but be very curious because that might be an oil that's helpful for you and you might do some other things first and then return to that later. For example, ylang ylang. It's a strong floral oil. Many improviser types or fire types have an aversion to it. You can try diluting it and see how you are with that. But one of the powerful gifts of ylang ylang for the improviser is that it helps with sensual embodiment, to come into the body and into the senses and occupy that space. It's also really good for improvisers who have burned themselves out from too much activity for too long. Yeah, too much output. One of my favorite points for Ylang is on heart 7, which is right at the end of where the pinky is on the wrist crease, and that's bilateral here. Jasmine is a powerful oil for the improviser because one of the improviser's challenges has to do with broken commitment and deceit. And by the way, the deceit can also take the form of wearing different faces or different masks and not being honest with others or with oneself. Anybody can do that, and I think we all do that to some degree, but the improviser can really take it on in a strong way and become very, very good at it to their own detriment if they're not using it with thoughtful awareness. So this broken trust theme with the improviser as well as the healing of trust theme is central to the creative acts of the improviser. So another way of saying that is the improviser creator type is going to be very drawn to creative endeavors that engender greater trust. If they're in balance, the improviser will want to create in ways that generate more trust from themselves to themselves and from themselves to the other. If they're out of balance, then they're in the realm of breaking down trust. This is why the 3 C's are so important. Jasmine is the key oil for restoring broken trust. My favorite point, you know this if you've worked with me, pericardium 7, right here on the center of the wrist. And you can just put a drop there and then put the hands together. I like using Jasmine grandiflorum, which is usually listed as Jasmine ABS, but you can also use Jasmine Sambac. I was like, I've done this so many times in my life that it felt like I just went right into that. I even put the oil there, but I instantly felt the transmission of jasmine. If you've never done this practice before, do it. It's really powerful. And you just hold it there for 1 to 3 minutes. The last oil that I want to give an honorable mention to for the improviser type is rose. Rose has a strong affinity for the heart, and that's the organ, that's the central organ for the improviser type, the heart. Rose, I call it compassionate grace or the one. It has this way of ensconcing us in a kind of bliss bubble. And it's always an interesting little struggle I have with articulating this, which is that rose, it's not a psychological experience. It actually brings us into the embodiment of acceptance within ourselves. So if somebody says to you, "Oh, you should forgive them or you should accept that," usually we'll relate to it in a psychological or a mental way. If you use rose with the intention of softening or healing or creating more ease or calming your heart, whatever it is, there will be an energetic experience of acceptance within your being. And it might be very strong or it might be very mild, but that is part of the transmission of rose essential oil. And you can put it right over your heart chakra or right over that heart 7 point here. Okay, my dears, what do you think? I'm checking the chat. Somebody said frankincense too for oils to support. Yes. You know where I am so glad you said that with frankincense. Frankincense, where it excels with the improviser, is in timing. I'm so glad you said that, Leah. And remember last week I was telling you that the improvisers can struggle with timing because they can get really sped up and sort of out of the rhythm of their body or out of the rhythm of the earth. Frankincense will recalibrate the improviser's relationship to time and timing. Right on. 32 minutes. Okay. I so enjoyed this time with you all. Do share this video. Invite anybody to watch these. We're going to continue to have even more fun. Next week, we're going to begin the journey with the alchemist, water element. Okay, I will see you then from my heart to yours. And until next time.